What is up, everybody? Welcome to That Wannabe Film Class. We are here on our last episode of our first month, the
Pilot
2000s month.
Yes.
What is that? Pilot month, yes. The further this month has gone on, first of all, I'm Ben Bellevue. I'm joined today by Logan Wilkinson.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, Logan, you're right. I went into this month being like, we'll do the pilot episode, and then we'll have like the month, and we won't have the usual guest because the pilot takes up that slot.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've gone through a month, and we've had one episode that you couldn't make it on, and then we've had this episode which Chloe can't make it on.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? It's a pilot month. We're figuring it out.
Yeah,
Pilot
exactly.
month. I'm going to be editing the audio for this one too, which is my first time doing that. So also, just adding to that, we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Exactly.
Scenario.
Fly by the seat of your pants, man.
Yeah. Logan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ben. It's been mostly good weather in Austin. Had a pretty solid past 2 weeks. And yeah, it's Thanksgiving week when we're recording this, and it's going to go live the day of Turkey Day itself.
Oh my God, you're right. No, it goes live.
It goes live Thursday.
You're right. It goes live Thursday, yeah.
So it'll be,
I keep thinking it's Friday, and then it sneaks up on me.
And so, yeah, it's an exciting time. I'm always excited for Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays. I love all the food, love all the goodies, love all the treats. How about you? How are you doing, Ben?
I'm tired. I was telling you this before we started recording, but I woke up in Los Angeles at 7 a.m. today, and I had to drive from LA to San Diego to my family's house. And then my mom needed help with cleaning out her garage, and that was supposed to be at 11, my dad shows up with his car to dump trash in to take to the dump, and that became him showing up at 1:30 and me having to book it to be back in time for this. But I'm here. We're here on this beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
Yeah, I did get to go to Big Bear this weekend, though, which was very nice. Yeah. It was cold. There was snow. I haven't seen snow in 12 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Because my family was never really skiers or snowboarders. So the last time I went to the snow was, when was it? It was when I was 12. I was in elementary school still. And then I've gone to places that have snow, but I just haven't gone when it's snowing. So I've been to Maine, but it was the fall. It wasn't snowing yet. I've been to Maryland, but it could have snowed when I was in Maryland. It just didn't. Mm-hmm. I've avoided it. I've avoided the snow for a solid 12 years
That's
of my life.
Correct call to do, because snow is, as has been well documented, awful.
But it's so nice in short spurts,
It's nice to look at, I guess, but then you have to do anything interacting with the snow itself. And it's just all right, what's better? Not snow.
That's fair. We had little steps up to our cabin, and it was covered in snow when we got there. And I was like, I sure hope I don't die.
I sure hope this isn't the end of me, but who really knows? And I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Ava my girlfriend, for listeners, had to walk up the steps without any light when we first got there because the porch light wasn't on. And I was just like, oh, that was nerve-wracking. But we're not here to talk about snow.
Thank God.
You know what we are here to talk about? We are here, to talk about my pick for movies of the 2000s that I love, Hot Fuzz. For anyone listening who listened to the pilot episode and are like, didn't you already choose a 2000s movie? Technically, yes. However, Mamma Mia wasn't me going through the 2000s movies and genuinely trying to figure out what movie I want. It was me being like, we need to test this concept out. I don't even know if this podcast is going to end up being released to the public or if it's just going to be a trial run. So I looked through a list of 2000s movies and very quickly was like, Mamma Mia is a good option. That seems like something everyone would enjoy talking about. So this is my real choice.
And it's a great choice. It's that thing, we're about to dive into the facts and the crew right now, but any Edgar Wright choice is always a good choice, I would say.
Honestly, it's Edgar. I'm gonna delay this question. I wanna ask you your ranking of Edgar Wright movies that you've seen, but I want to wait until the end. That being said, before we dive into our Oh, I guess I had a housekeeping note, but I'm just realizing that we kind of touched on that already, so never mind. So yeah, this is Hot Fuzz. I chose it because Hot Fuzz it was my favorite movie for a time. It
Really?
isn't.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it isn't now, but up until I would say, I mean, like the thing with favorite movies, as I'm sure anyone who thinks about it for more than 5 seconds can attest, is that like your favorite movie is so dependent on the mood. It's either dependent on the mood you're in when you choose it, or it's dependent on you kind of just like holding fast to what you claim as your favorite, even if it's not really your favorite.
Yes.
I was watching an episode of CW's The Flash recently, and there was this little gag where they're like, oh, this character developed an AI based off of Barry Allen, The Flash, and he answers everything the way Barry would. And at one point, they're like, oh yeah, what's his favorite movie? And the AI is like Jurassic Park. And Barry's like, and they're like answering at the same time. And Barry says Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, which are both very good choices. But one of the characters is like, see, it's not perfect. And then Barry sits there for a second and goes, you know what? I always say it's Empire Strikes Back. But now that I think about it, it might be Jurassic Park. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of us. It's like, it's really hard to choose a favorite movie that is genuinely like our favorite movie, because there's so much good media out there that you start getting like very, very, like it's by a hair.
It's interesting for me too, obviously looking at it from like a film and then like a game perspective, where like if you ask me my favorite game, it's very easy. It is The Last of Us, right? Like it is
interesting.
I think this kind of cinematic storytelling masterpiece, and it had a profound effect on me. Movies, I've always been really bad at. I've always been so bad at picking a favorite movie. I'll name 5 movies, right? Whereas I think like I can sit here and we can rattle this off. Like we have a month in our like film class doc of like favorite movie month kind of thing. And it's one for me where it's like, it'll be one of 5. Like I can tell you my 5, but like it'd be between that. Like I don't have like a Sing Street movie kind of thing, or I don't have like that kind of thing where for me, it's like, I have some movies from different like genres and franchise where it's like, it's one of these. And then honestly, it depends on the day you ask me. It depends on the day, the time you ask me, and then that's what my favorite movie is going to be. But I think Hot Fuzz, I think, is a totally respectable choice.
It's a phenomenal film.
I'll tease you with the knowledge that like it's not my favorite Edgar Wright movie.
That's fair. Edgar Wright is a very good filmmaker who I think.
But it's a very, very good one, yes. I
am interested to hear what your ranking is. But before we get to that, let's go quickly over some of these movie facts. Little movie details. This movie is, as we've said 5 times at this point, directed by Edgar Wright. It is written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, which is, I feel like no one really... I know movie people understand that Simon Pegg writes things, but I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that.
Sure, yeah.
Because Simon Pegg writes a lot of the stuff that he's in, particularly the stuff that's directed by Edgar Wright. And he's very talented.
Yeah. I've been a huge Simon Pegg fan for years. Yeah.
He's fantastic. He's so good. This is also an incredibly stacked cast.
Yes, like, absolutely. Especially as the years have gone by. Like, shout out to Olivia Colman getting like a nothing role, but like fucking, oh my God.
Like you watch this movie and you're like, oh yeah, Martin Freeman's in that. That is in this. That's cool. And at that point, Martin Freeman wasn't Watson. He wasn't Bilbo Baggins. He was just like, a British actor who was quite talented and was in some stuff. And now he's Martin Freeman. You have Timothy Dalton playing Simon Skinner, who is, James Bond.
I was going to say, Timothy Dalton one, I fucking... like, Timothy Dalton, I love just in general. But what's great about him is that, like, he has become such a great villain. And, like, I feel like he plays so many villains. And, like, even, like, Doctor Who, he's a great, like... He's so...
Oh, God, you're right.
Yeah. Like, he's so great as a villain. And I think that... I think he relishes it. Like he, like, just chews up scenery. And, like, any kind of role he's in.
Have you seen Chuck?
I've not seen Chuck, but I've been told, like, he's great in it.
He's phenomenal in it. I think that was my introduction to Timothy Dalton. And, yeah, because, like, I knew he was James Bond, but I hadn't seen any of his James Bond movies. So that was me being like, this guy, like, I get that it was the same thing with Linda Hamilton. Linda Hamilton is in Chuck as Chuck's mom. And when they cast her, they're like, "Oh, it's Sarah Connor from Terminator," and I was like, "I've never seen a Terminator movie." Oh, now I have. They're phenomenal. Well, yes. the James Cameron Terminator movies.
Some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are good. We have obviously Simon Pegg playing our lead, Nicholas Angel. Nick Frost playing Danny Butterman. We have Bill Nighy playing the Chief Inspector, which is a very small part because, of course, it is. It's Bill Nighy. He's a busy man, but God, I love him. I love Bill Nighy and pretty much everything I've ever seen him do.
Love Actually, man.
He was in Love Actually. I'm more partial to About Time as Richard Curtis movies go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love About Time. He is phenomenal in that movie. His relationship with Donald Gleason's character, the main character, makes me cry. It's fine. Like you said, we have Olivia Colman as Doris, which is a very small part, and now she's an Oscar-winning actress. We have Stephen Merchant as, I just put him down as the Swan guy.
My favorite recurring gag.
Yeah, that's a good one. And we have, okay, here's my question. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I know of, again, like I've had everything spoiled for me, but I don't watch it myself, no.
Okay. Do you know who the Hound is?
I know of the Hound.
Okay. This is less of a deal for you then, which is sad. But the Michael, the big guy who says Yarp and Narp, is played by the actor that plays the Hound. And is, and it's very difficult to tell because, like, the Hound, A, has makeup to make him look kind of burnt, but also has, hair. So it's one of those roles that I forgot for a second when I was making this list. Also, a fun thing that I found out while doing research, when Sergeant Angel goes to talk to his ex at the little crime scene in the beginning of the movie, he's talking to her and she's like, "Oh, I know you're leaving. Bob told me." And this one guy walks by and he's like, "Hello." That man is Joe Cornish, who is not a known actor. What he is, though, is a director who has done Attack the Block, which is a very good, small little... Yeah, he's director of Attack the Block with John Boyega, long before John Boyega was John Boyega.
Yep.
And most recently, he directed The Kid Who Would Be King. And he's also done a lot of, I think, script doctoring for... Like, I've read an interview with him a few months ago where he was saying, like, yeah, it took a while for me to make this movie because I was just doing a lot of, like, help work on other people's things. So that's cool. It's cool to see the little British filmmaking community.
Yeah, all come together.
Mm-hmm. I met Timothy Dalton once.
Did you really?
Yeah, I walked up to him and I was like, "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you, but I loved you in Chuck and Hot Fuzz." And he was like, "Oh, thank you." And he's like, "Do you go to?" So the way I met him was I was working on one of the like film stages at my school because we have 2 film stages for when you're shooting films if you aren't shooting off campus. And I was working there and one of the guys on set came in and was like, "There's like an event happening in the lobby." And I think I just saw Timothy Dalton, and everyone knew Hot Fuzz was one of my favorite movies. So they're like, "Ben, tell us if that's Timothy Dalton." And I was like, "Okay." So I walked into the lobby and Timothy Dalton was just there, which was wild. And he asked me if I went to school there, and I very awkwardly said yes, and then shuffled away like a frightened child.
That's fair. Timothy Dalton has an air of he could just kill you.
Yeah, he scares me. In my notes for Hot Fuzz as I was watching it, basically, I stopped doing it after a while because it became redundant. But for the first like 3 scenes where Timothy Dalton appears, I just wrote Timothy in all caps. Speaking of the recap, you know what time it is, Logan?
It's recap time.
It's recap time. Logan, we open Hot Fuzz with, frankly, a fantastic scene. We meet Nicholas Angel, and we go through a lot of like little recap stuff with him, but the scene that I'm talking about that I think is truly phenomenal is just this single shot of him walking through the police station up to a desk where the camera's positioned, and he's in silhouette, so you can't really make out what he looks like, but he's walking like very purposefully and very like, proper police procedure. He looks tough. He looks like he's, very by the books. Maybe I'm just reading into it too much because I know his character, but I feel like who he is just so perfectly captured in this one very simple scene that is one camera position just held as he walks towards the camera.
I mean, I literally wrote down, it was the first note I made, which is just opening scene, fantastic. I think the entire opening scene, just the recap, everything, him walking in the camera, like you said, ending with him at the desk with like the 3 different officers who are like higher above him. That whole introduction is so good. It's so like well done. That sets like it helps you understand immediately who Nicholas Angel is. Helps you understand like immediately how like impressive and talented and driven and like single-minded he is. It helps set in like what the world is like in London and also where they're kind of shuffling him off to. Like it's such, and like also kind of the energy and vibe of what Hot Fuzz is gonna be. Like it is such a great like introduction, right? And like for me, I'll never forget when I like one of my film teachers back when I was in college always said that like the first like 5 minutes of a movie are the most important. And I don't agree with that. Like I definitely have like reservations with that comment. But I definitely think that like the first 5 minutes and the opening scene in particular like establish what the movie is going to be. Yeah. And I think this establishes what this movie is going to be so incredibly well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the first 5 minutes are the most important, but the first 5 minutes do have 2 key factors. One is they need to sell you on the movie, especially like if you're going to a movie theater to watch a movie, you're probably in. You're not going to walk out unless it's abysmal. If it's something like this podcast where we're forcing each other to watch movies, like you're going to be in. But especially in the age of Netflix and before that, the age of TV, if you're flipping through the channels or if you're pulling up Netflix and you watch like 5 minutes of something and you don't like it, there's a solid chance you're going to change to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that when I tried watching the last Airbender movie. I watched like 5 minutes and went, no. That is one of the problems with this movie, not like with talking about this movie, not with the movie itself. One of the problems with talking about this movie is just that it's so intricately designed and so layered and so smart pretty much all the time that it's hard not to just be like pointing out joke by joke and like line by line beat why it's fantastic. Because there are so many moments where I was like, I want to say this joke's great, but every other one is too. So I don't really see a reason to point this one out. This movie. Anyway, so we meet Nicholas Angel, as you said. We see him talking to his bosses at the London Metropolitan Police Force, and they tell him that he's too good to be part of the team, that he is being shipped off to a little town, Sanford, voted #1 village for God knows how many years. And he hates that idea, but he has no choice. He's forced into it. We see him go talk to his ex, who he's recently broke up with because he's too attached to the job. And he tells her, and she's like, I don't care, dude. Like, just go. I'm seeing someone. So Nicholas Angel, with no real attachments left, hops on a train and takes the train to Sanford with only his peace lily of the plant. Yeah. That entire scene is phenomenal. Just like the way they portray him moving from the city to Sanford is brilliant. Were you gonna?
I think for me, yeah, like the way that it kind of just like all bleeds together, just like cut him. Like again, like the second thing I wrote in my notes that is true for the entire movie, and I fucking love. Like it's, and one of my favorite thing in the entire movie is just all of the quick cuts. So many quick cuts and like hard cuts that I just love. Like Edgar Wright, and like if you have watched an Edgar Wright movie before, like this is less shocking. But like it's so well done, and it's that weird thing where like it'll seep into my brain. And then when I walk away, I feel like I'm starting to like making like hard cuts, like grabbing things very quickly and like stopping them suddenly. And it's like, man, I'm becoming an Edgar Wright movie now because of watching this movie. But like, I love the cutting of this movie, how it's spliced and how like just like the hard cut suddenly is like just bursting through something really quick and then grabbing it and stopping kind of thing. Like the movie's cut so well. And I think, again, that kind of transition from London to Sanford showcases that, introduces that mechanic so effectively.
And I think what's great about Edgar Wright's quick cuts and just like his style of filmmaking that I think is often lost in the conversation about it is a lot of people are like, oh, it's really stylistic and it's cool and I enjoy it. But it's also, he's so good at telling you things with visuals and with his cutting and with the way he frames his camera. So like when you see Nick, when you see Sergeant Angel, I keep wanting to call him Nick, but no one calls him Nick in the movie, so that feels weird.
Nope.
When you see Angel going on the train, like the way that his departure from civilization is represented is you watch the bars tick down on his phone over time. So he's getting further and further away from like cell signal and traditional civilization and all that kind of stuff. And that's just such a great little detail. And
I think for me, it's just Edgar Wright movies are stylish. And I think that for me, it's like they're all kind of built into what like Baby Driver is going to be. But like, it is so. I think the cuts and the kind of the rapid nature of them just add that extra kind of sheen of just like it just becomes like this is a fucking movie. Like it draws you in so well. And like I like every one of them. It doesn't matter if it's just like Angel going for like a thing of milk, just like grabbing me like I just want to watch that on a loop again and again and again. Just a hard cut into the fridge and a hard cut into a beer and a hard cut into like this and like super hyper focus, like zoom in on things and boom, a hand bursts in and grabs something. It's like it's just shot so well.
And like credit to his editor as well, because obviously
absolutely, yeah.
I believe I didn't have time to look this up, but if I remember correctly from like 4 years ago when I was in film school talking about this movie, I believe his editor he hired for this movie. This was the first time they worked together. I don't know if they worked together after this. They might have. But it was the editor for Slumdog Millionaire, I think, and he saw Slumdog Millionaire and went, "That's the style I want," and then got this editor.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like credit where credit's due. That editor does a phenomenal job.
I mean, absolutely.
And yeah, so he arrives in town. He gets to the hotel he's staying at because the cottage that's been set up for him is not set up yet. And we see the first moment of this town just being real weird. When he goes to talk to the woman working the front desk of the hotel. Fascist. Yeah, and she's like doing the crossword, and he walks up, and he's like, "I'm here to check in," and she's like, "But you've always been here." And then he's like, "What?" And you as the audience are like, "What? What movie am I watching?" And then she looks up and is like, "Oh, I thought you were my husband." And it's just like, it's one of those things where her explanation kind of makes sense, but it's also so weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, but it sets that tone so well. They're just like, oh man, I love it.
That whole exchange is also one of the is one of the clips that I've seen before. So like the fascist and hag back and forth is like one that I had seen before, knew was coming, and still found myself just like dying laughing. It's so, and like the way that like it brings back together at the very end of the movie too. Like it's such a great like dumb, goofy bit that again I think sets you in the world of Sanford and like just the weirdness of it so well.
And that's like going off of that, that's such a constant thing throughout this movie of just everything sets up something for later. Every scene, even a scene that doesn't need to set something up, like
there are a million Chekhov guns in this movie.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Chekhov's guns. There's a bunch of setups you don't realize are setups. There are scenes that work already. And like there were scenes where I was like, oh, I can quickly skip over this in the recap because the only thing I really need to say is like, oh, these characters bonded, which is important to the story. But then in the last like 2 lines of the scene, they drop 2 details that are of the utmost importance to something else in the story. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. Which is all to say, if you're listening to this and you haven't watched Hot Fuzz, but you've gotten this far in the podcast, yeah, we can't recap this movie well enough to cover all of the twists and turns. Because whenever I think of Hot Fuzz, and I think when a lot of people think of Hot Fuzz, they call it an action comedy. Which it kind of is.
Kind of is. But only even the action only in like the last like act.
Yeah. It's definitely a comedy, but I would say it is as much of a like classic cop mystery like, thriller,
like whodunit kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very much in the vein of like Agatha Christie and those kinds of, or like Hitchcock even. I think Hitchcock's a good example. It's very Hitchcock.
That's a really good example. Yeah.
And the thing is, its mystery works without the comedy. And what's amazing is that the comedy doesn't take away from the mystery, which I feel like is a very hard line to toe.
Yes.
partly because it's such British comedy that everyone's kind of taking themselves seriously, but it's funny in spite of that.
It's so incredible. I love, and I think we're each suckers for British kind of comedies in general, but like
for sure.
God, the way that like Edgar Wright, in particular, like the kind of trilogy of films that he's doing with Simon Pegg, like everybody takes themselves so seriously, even in the most like outlandish of situations, is like comic gold to me every single time.
Yeah. So once he's gotten to the town, to the village, I keep calling it the town. He goes to the pub, which is, a classic Edgar Wright imagery for these movies. The pubs are always featured in the Simon Pegg movies, which I keep calling them the Simon Pegg movies. Officially, they're the Cornetto trilogy, which I learned something
Blood
about.
and Ice Cream trilogy.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So I knew that it was the Cornetto trilogy. I own it as like the Cornetto trilogy box set. It didn't click with me that that's the name of the ice cream in all the movies. So I was like doing research and they're like, oh yeah, it's the Cornetto trilogy because of the ice cream. And I was like, I genuinely never knew why it was called the Cornetto trilogy. I thought it was just something I didn't get, which I guess is accurate. It was something I didn't get.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah. So he goes to the pub, arrests some underage kids for drinking because the pub owners are allowing them to, and meets our second biggest character in the movie, Nick Frost's character, Danny Butterman, who is very drunk and trying to drive under the influence, which is bad.
Don't do that.
Yeah, so Angel arrests the kids. He arrests Danny. He takes them all to the police station and calls it a night. And then the next day, we get to experience his first day where he learns a couple things. First of all, he learns that Danny is not only a drunk driver, he's also a policeman and also the son of the police chief, Frank Butterman, played by Jim Broadbent. And then he goes through like the basic, meeting everyone situation. He learns about the last sergeant who came from the city and just like couldn't handle it, quote unquote. He meets the NWA, the Neighborhood Watch Alliance. Do you think that Edgar Wright knows what NWA is?
I thought about this like more in the back half, and I kept mentioning it more and more and more. There's no way he doesn't know what NWA means. There's no way he didn't like make that at least somewhat of like a sly kind of like, joke.
I have to believe you're right. I wasn't sure if it was like, oh, that didn't make it across the pond or something, but I have to imagine that Edgar Wright knew what he was doing by calling them the NWA.
Yeah, I feel like he had to.
For anyone listening who doesn't get it, we're talking about not a band, I guess, the group, the rap group,
the hip-hop
NWA.
Group, yeah.
Yeah. So he learns about the Force. There's a really good gag I loved in this when he's talking to the police chief and they keep offering him cake and it's being offered out of like the corner of the screen. Edgar Wright's just so good at visual comedy. It's insane. It's insane how good he is at it. I am 100% treading old ground by bringing this up because it's the focus of a very good video essay by Every Frame of Painting. But Every Frame of Painting is very good.
I'm so sad that it stopped.
I know. They have a video where they talk about how a lot of comedies nowadays are essentially built off of the principle of improv, which is, people stand around saying jokes at each other, which works. It can be funny, but it's not utilizing... It's people who are trained in improv making movies doing what they do best, which is fair, which is totally valid. But the reality is they are not filmmakers in the sense of like their specialty isn't utilizing every aspect of film. So what's great about Edgar Wright movies is that he uses the camera angle and the sound and the editing and everything for comedic effect. It's not just saying a funny line to someone else. It's the way something's cut, the cake just being like shoved in from the corner of a screen. It's phenomenal. I don't want to talk too much about that because, again, there is an Every Frame of Painting video on it. But any listener who's interested in that should go watch it because they'll say things better than I can. You've seen Every Frame of Painting, Logan?
I fucking adore it. Again, I'm eternally heartbroken. Basically, it's just like they just stopped making them.
What video essays do you watch now, if you watch any?
Let me go to my YouTube. Every Hammer Pen was like was the big one that kind of opened the door for me.
It was the same for me. I think.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the series that also got me watching Edgar Wright. I'm pretty sure I owe Every Hammer Painting for my exposure to Edgar Wright, because I don't know, I didn't grow up in a super film heavy environment, you know. So my family watched movies, obviously, but I didn't grow up with like a parent who loved movies, and I was the oldest sibling, so I didn't grow up with like an older sibling who introduced me to movies and stuff. So I kind of just watched whatever my family had around the house. I watched a lot of Star Wars. I might get a Star Wars tattoo. That's a thing that I'm thinking about right now.
Do you know what you might get?
I'm debating it. My really generic answer is an outline of the Rebel logo, which is like,
sure.
Of the things from Star Wars that I could get a tattoo of, I want something that carries meaning for me beyond the fact that Star Wars is one of my favorite things on this planet, which it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like the spirit of rebellion, so I feel like the Rebel tattoo kind of carries that.
Yeah.
The alternative, the one I really want to do, I just don't know if I can make it work in a way that looks cool, is I want the twin suns.
Ooh.
But it's very hard to make the twin suns work without just being like 2 dots on your body.
Sure.
Yeah.
We should talk, not on this because the podcast, but an entirely different movie, but like I feel like we should talk about the twin sun thing.
Oh, we can talk about anything we want on this podcast.
I feel like we would have a really good conversation about the twin sun. And at some point when we actually talk about Star Wars, that's a conversation that we should definitely remember to have. It's like the twin sun thing, yeah.
We will absolutely get to Star Wars eventually. So the thing is with the twin suns, if I do the twin suns, I need to connect it to something else visually. So part of me wants to do the shot, essentially, very simplistically, of Luke meditating right before he dies with the twin suns in the background from The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. And if not that, I think I'd want to do like the twin suns with kind of a minimalist X-Wing design or something, because I've seen some cool ones of that. But I don't know. I'm figuring it out.
I once wrote a paper on one of my film classes about almost entirely about just like the image of Luke in A New Hope and the twin suns.
It's so good.
It is arguably my single favorite shot in any movie.
I get that.
I fucking adore that shot.
That is, I think, possibly the best manifestation of the call to adventure visually.
Yes, I think it is the entire kind of distillation of like Luke and his journey, but also kind of just like the ethos and kind of mythology of Star Wars all rolled into like one single. Like it is like I've seen a few things where like George Lucas talking about like that shot, and it's like so like I adore that shot. Yeah,
that's why I want the twin suns, because in my mind, if I'm gonna get a tattoo of Star Wars, I want it to represent something. So the Rebel logo represents rebellion, which is like cool. But the thing that I love the most about Star Wars is the idea of hope. And I feel like the twin suns capture that more than any other visual I could do.
It's the impossibility of hope, right? It's beautiful. Yeah.
I love Star Wars. Anyway.
Yes. Hot Fuzz.
So we meet the NWA. We meet Timothy Dalton for the first time during this because, I totally missed this part. Because Sergeant Angel goes running at the beginning of the day. And he runs through the town. And like everyone already knows him, which is just, this movie is so good at establishing like character and tone and the feel of the town in every chance it's given without feeling heavy-handed.
I mean, I 100% agree. Again, it's just constant layers and things just kind of feeding off themselves in a cycle again and again and again.
So you hadn't seen this movie yet. At this point in the movie, what were you feeling about it?
I mean, like, I would say pretty much immediately after I met Timothy Dalton, I was like, oh, he's probably not a good guy. And again, it's weird because I had never seen the movie, but I knew like some of the old people were bad. Like I knew like the fashion lady was a bad person. So like I think like who among the old people are bad? And like spoiler alert, I didn't think the answer was all of them, but I definitely knew that like a good chunk were bad. And so just kind of think like who is the answer? And the greatest twist of all, they all were. There were no good ones.
Yeah. I love this movie. I'm going to keep saying that, I think. So
keep doing it, man.
He's taken throughout the police station. He meets the other police officers, including Olivia Colman as Doris. He meets the NWA liaison. You know what I mean. You understand.
Liaison, yeah.
Yeah, liaison. And we get to meeting the NWA as a whole, which I think is a really cool scene because somehow an entire scene of introductions is good.
Yes.
Movies so often avoid introducing characters to each other, especially if it's like a lot of them, because it's awkward and weird and doesn't work.
Yeah, how do you do it? Well, yeah.
Exactly. And yet somehow Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg wrote a scene and they're like, this entire scene is introductions. And it not only works, it not only is enjoyable, it is also so valuable to this movie because one of this movie's, I think, best qualities is that you know everyone in this town. There's no one that you like casually see out of the corner of your eye. You know every significant person in this village. We get to meeting Tim Messenger, who runs the newspaper. He
can't spell.
Writes. Yeah, he cannot spell. He calls Angel Angle in the newspaper, and then people make jokes about it forever. And then we get to what I put in my notes as the unfinished Swan game.
Oh.
It's so good. That's such a good scene.
It's such a great, dumb, recurrent gag. Just like the swan popping up again and again and again. I love it.
I love that it keeps popping up. I also just love the initial joke of like Angel sitting there taking. I know I'm just sitting here explaining jokes, which is like the dumbest thing ever.
But it's fine. It's so good though.
He's just sitting there and he's like taking a note and he's like, "Can you explain what it looks like?" And Stephen Merchant's just like, "It's a swan." Which is hilarious. It also sets up
2.5 feet high. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It also establishes more of how by the book Angel is. It's great. After this, we see Angel and Danny Butterman bond because they're, they're working together now. They're partners on the force. And we see... Oh, he goes into the grocery store. Sorry, I took notes poorly for a second. He goes into the grocery store. I kind of hate how this grocery store looks.
It's hideous. It's
awful. Like,
it's really bad.
Every time there's a scene in the grocery store, I don't want to look at it.
But I think that like ugliness kind of works in the fact that it's a very unpleasant place.
Oh no, I agree. I think it works for the tone. I don't know if that was an intentional decision by Edgar Wright.
I don't either, but it's inadvertently a good, yeah.
For sure. So they go to the grocery store. They talk to Timothy Dalton's character a bit more, Simon Skinner. And they discover that someone's shoplifting, so a chase breaks out. We see... So you've seen Shaun of the Dead. I'm assuming you haven't seen The World's End.
I have not seen. You've correctly identified the movies in the trilogy that I've seen. Shaun of the Dead, spoiler, going to be very, 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 very high when we get to Edgar Wright movies.
I'm not surprised. So we see a repeat of the fence scene from Shaun of the Dead, where... Unlike in Shaun of the Dead, where Simon Pegg fails to vault over the fence, in this one, because he's, this fantastic, amazing police officer, he vaults over 3 of them and then does a flip over the 4th one.
Oh my God.
Which is a gag that is also repeated in The World's End. I forget.
But that's not even the best part of the best part of the gag is Nick Frost and try to go through that first fence and just falling over and smashing through it. And it's fucking incredible. What a great piece of physical comedy.
It is. It's very, very funny. Fun fact, Simon Pegg did those first 3 vaults. That was not a stuntman. It was the only stunt was the 4th vault they had to do the flip and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't want to die."
Fair.
Another note, that's a total sidetrack. So the theme song for this movie that like plays every so often? Does it sound like Digimon to you?
Oh God. I'd have to listen to Digimon again. It has been 16, 17 years, yeah.
Once it gets going, it doesn't. But just the initial beats of that, every time it comes on, my head starts going, Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon Garlic Champions. Also, I say Garlic Champions because...
I just noticed that too.
Yeah. I know it's not what it is. It's just that as a kid, I couldn't... It's Digimon are the champions. But as a kid, it sounded like garlic to me. And I knew that was wrong. Like, I never assumed it was right. It's just that's how it got stuck in my head. So if I'm not thinking about it, that's how it comes out. Digimon, they're the Garlic Champions.
Digimon's great.
Yeah, Digimon's great. Where's my Digimon movie? We got a Pokemon movie. I want a Digimon.
That's actually a really interesting question. Yeah, that's a really... I'd watch a Digimon movie, I think.
They did... I mean, they've made Digimon animated movies. I'm saying, where's my Digimon live action? Weird ass movie that isn't necessarily good, but is so absurd that you love it anyway. I want it. I want to have I want a shelf of just weird modern remakes of childhood things. Not like the Disney Aladdin and Lion King stuff, because that can go to hell. But I'm talking Detective Pikachu. I'm talking Power Rangers 2017. I'm talking Digimon. That's my trinity.
Digimon. I'm gonna have that stick with the rest of my the day
Good.
now.
I hope all of our audience does. So, from this point on, also, they use food. Say whatever you want, please.
Can I give a shout out? Like, we kind of touched it kind of quickly, but like the bonding scene between Nick Frost's character, like between Butterman and like Angel, I really actually loved. It was just him at the pub, just like doing like again, just like down in like pints, and then going to the one guy, like pissing on the everything, and then like taking him to his house, doing the 20 like pound gag of like, here's that for you, cool, give me that, here's your change back, awesome. And like, it was really funny. Ending with them at like this like super awkward thing of like, you want to come inside for coffee? I don't drink coffee. Want to come inside for tea? I don't drink tea. How about a pint? And it's just like, then like watching Bad Boys and
Bad
Point
Boys
Break.
2
It's so good. Like, I loved that whole bonding scene is so well done. Like, actually, like establishes like yeah, like these guys would bond this way. And, like, it does make sense. And it is one of actually like one of my low key like favorite like scenes in the movie, I think.
No, I vibe with that. We haven't gotten to it yet, but my note when we got to that scene is I love the bonding scene. It's so good. It's because I think at the core of this movie, beyond the mystery and the comedy and all of this stuff, is a love story between Nicholas Angel and Danny Butterman.
That's the thing, is that it plays like it's a love story, but it's not. It's like they're two straight guys, but it plays like a love story, and it works so well.
I mean, do we know that they're two straight guys? We have no clue what Danny Butterman's sexuality is. And all we know is that Nicholas Angel is interested in women. We don't know he's not interested in men. I'm just saying, Hot Fuzz 2,
that's a great point.
Nicholas Angel and Danny have to save their wedding.
Or have to save their like 10-year-old boy that they've grown together.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And like it's definitely a thing where like it helps the fact that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are like real life amazing friends, because their chemistry is fucking incredible. It's like it isn't all their movies together, but like, man, like it plays like a love story, but like
it does
just a non-traditional one, and it's so great. And like that's again like the awkward thing of, like, you want to come inside, but it's like worded differently. It's like, man, this is really good.
It's this weird thing I have with movies where, on one hand, I love movies that can be about love that isn't romantic love, where it can be like, yeah, love of friends is important, and I like seeing that. But then there's another part of my head that is like, if this was a guy and a girl, and this is the way they interacted and talked and bonded, they would hook up at the end. It's like Bend It Like Beckham. Have you ever seen Bend It Like Beckham?
I sure have.
That movie is so gay. Like, those two girls are so in love with each other. More than this one. More than Hot Fuzz.
Yes,
Bend It Like Beckham is about two women who are in love with each other, and the only reason it's not canon is because that movie came out in the early 2000s, and time was not
on their side.
Yeah. Anyway, moving away from Danny and Sergeant Angel's clear love for each other. We're gonna step back for a second. We're gonna step back. We're gonna get back to this bonding scene again, but we're gonna step back because they have traffic duty, and this is where we meet our first victims of the movie, Blower and Eve, who are on their way to dress rehearsal for their play. We see Angel give him a ticket. He drives off. He offers them tickets to the play. Angel turns it down, but he has to go anyway because the chief enforces it. The play is awful.
It was terrible. It was real bad. It was like, I will give a shout out to like the final dance number to end Romeo and Juliet that they kind of added in. That was a unique twist, I think, but it was bad. It was rough.
I definitely forgot how bad it was. It's been a little while. It's been like a year since I saw Hot Fuzz. And in my head, I very clearly can picture the bad acting, and I can kind of remember the musical number. I forgot about the gun.
Oh, that's right. Bang.
Bang. Love me, love. I'm sorry for anyone who's having to hear my singing multiple times throughout this.
It's so good.
So, first of all, fantastic. I just, so good. They get killed. They get straight up ganked.
Murdered, yeah.
And this is where we start to see the movie go from being like a cute little cop movie with a kind of weird town to being very dark, because not only are they killed, their death is staged as an accident on the road where they're decapitated, supposedly by driving off the road and their entire top of the car being cut off. And you see their heads.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You see their decapitated heads. I love it, but it's alarming.
It's alarming.
So from there, we meet Mr. Wembley, who is one more of these like charming little small town guys who also has an absurd armory of weapons.
Dude, this is my first selection in my top 3 scenes thing that we'll get to, but like I literally wrote down getting all the guns. Because A, like the triple translation is fucking hilarious to me. B, the actual act of like him going and seeing it. Then the point of the like sea mine is it's such a funny bit that pays off so at the end. And then the actual act of like them all walking with just like guns everywhere, just put them in like the evidence room is like such a great, just like again, quick cut, so well done. Like that whole scene I just fucking loved.
The part where he's like, oh, do you have a license for that gun? And he's like, for this one?
Yeah.
It's so hard for me not just like sit here in pure bliss at how good this movie is. This does remind me though, I totally forgot, but Mr. Wembley, the man with the armory, is also a very major actor.
Played by Argus Finch.
I even forgot that one. He's in Harry Potter. He's also in Doctor Who.
That's right.
He plays the Doctor. Yeah, in
because when they had to do it, because the original one died.
Yeah. So originally, he was in a movie that is about the creation of Doctor Who, and he played the actor who plays the first Doctor. And then when they decided they wanted to bring the first Doctor back, they had him play the first Doctor, because they do look remarkably similar.
Very similar, yeah.
So that's super cool. He's also in Game of Thrones, which I know you haven't seen, but he's great. He's Walter Frey. He's the head of House Frey. They're awful. It's weird thinking about Game of Thrones now that I've been scarred by it.
You've been seeing the ending? It's like what I think about whenever I think about like how much remember. It's like, man, what a good show that had such a terrible trash ending, and now I can't ever think about anything but the trash ending.
Yeah, sometimes people talk about like in season 6 they have the Battle of the Bastards, and the Battle of the Bastards is phenomenal filmmaking. And I was telling Ava about it because she loves good action scenes, and I was like, the Battle of the Bastards is one of the best, if not the best, action episodes of television I've ever seen. It's one of the best war films essentially I've ever seen. I love it, but also it's Game of Thrones, and I'm so damaged.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. They get the weapons, and now we get to the bonding scene that you and I love so much, where they help a man back to his house. His house is gorgeous, but also, quote unquote, not in keeping with the village's rustic aesthetic, which is true. It's a lot. And the house blows up. The house just goes boom, which the people of the village of Sanford think is an accident, just like they think that the
decapitation.
Yeah, just like they think that the decapitation is an accident, they think this is an accident because it was staged to look that way. We, however, know it is not, because just like we saw a person in black robes kill our actors, we also saw a person in a black robe kill him, stage it to look like an explosion, and then run off. And Nicholas Angel, the fantastic cop he is, also believes that none of these are accidents. He doesn't think that the car is an accident because there's no skid marks, and why would they have not tried to brake? And he doesn't think that this is an accident because that's just weird. All these accidents are a weird thing to be happening. So Angel is now hot on the case of who's committing all these murders. He's trying to think about it. But before he can do that, he's sent to work at a fair at the church. And at this church, We see another death.
Yo, this is the most fucking holy shit, that death thing.
Yeah, this is the most graphic death. This isn't, in my opinion, the most graphic thing to happen in the movie. We will get to the most graphic thing, which still unsettles me every time I see it.
Well, I'm curious to see now what you're going to pick.
On the note of how good the editing in this movie is, though, I just want to highlight the shot of Angel shooting the airsoft rifle, where instead of Edgar Wright taking the time to be like, oh, Angel, loads the rifle, he aims it, he shoots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 targets down, and then he puts the gun away. You just see Angel pick up the gun, cock it, then you see a shot of the targets all being knocked down one after another, and then you see him recock the gun basically in the exact reverse of what you saw seconds ago, and it conveys all the information you need without taking all the time that it would have taken in a traditional filmmaking format, and it's so good.
Hot Fuzz is a good movie, man.
I feel like this is the thing that happens every time, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just too hard on myself when I'm talking about and going through the recap of my movie choice, is I'm just sitting here going, I love it. I just want to keep talking about every single little thing, and I'm probably holding this up.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Amazing. So he does the little shootout thing. He is called up on stage. They call it police force, and he says police service, which I just think is yet another example of how good this movie is at keeping characters consistent. Because it's so easy to have characters say something earlier in the movie and then just kind of forget that that thing is established when it's such a small little detail. So the fact that each character is so perfectly attuned to who they're supposed to be and always reacting to things the way that they would be reacting is amazing.
Yeah, and I think particularly for Angel, it's just again, I think Sam Peck's performance is great, but it just further solidifies who this character is. And again, I think how he kind of starts to maybe break a little bit away from that as the film goes on. It's great. Hot Fuzz, man.
So Tim Messenger, the newspaper writer, is killed by a falling spire, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word I'm going to use. That's the third quote-unquote accident. Angel is even more convinced that it isn't one. He says it's murder. They shut everything down and close everything off to finally treat it as a murder. But the entire police force tells him he's crazy, that murder doesn't happen in Sanford, that he's just trying to look too much into things, that he's not even the detective, he's just the police sergeant. This isn't his job. And after being chided for this over and over, he also finds out that it's Danny's birthday. And because he's in love with him, he goes to get him a peace lily.
I love that scene, yeah.
It's so good. It's just, their relationship is so good.
It's so well done, yeah, it's so well done.
And when he goes to get the flowers, oh, I totally forgot. Right before he goes to get the flowers, he thinks he's pieced everything together. He thinks he's figured out what's going on. He looks into a bunch of newspaper clippings. He's trying to tie together Tim Messenger and this guy with the giant house and the actors from the play, Blower and Eve. And what he thinks he's pulled together is that Tim Messenger stumbled onto this big conspiracy that involves these three people. But before he can do that, he finds out it's Danny's birthday. So he goes to get the peace lily. And amazingly, after doing all this research and piecing all of this together, he goes to get the peace lily. He talks to the woman running the flower shop, who's this amazing person that deals with flowers. I don't know the term. She has a very green thumb. And she's like, oh, I'm moving away. And he's like, oh, why? And she basically tells him all the pieces of information that he just put together, which is, oh, well, a roadway is being built through here, which is going to make this place that I live in really valuable. And these people who all just died, rest their soul, all had connections to it in some way. Eve, the actress, because she worked for the council, and the guy with the big house because he was a real estate developer, and the other actor because he was a lawyer for the real estate developer, and the Tim Messenger because he pieced it all together. And you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is everything. We've solved what did you think when you got to this point? What were you thinking about the mystery?
It was weird because I had figured I'd pegged Timothy Dalton as being one of the bad guys, if not the main bad guy, early on.
Which is for sure the point.
Yeah, right. And it was a thing for me where I was scared that it might be a red herring kind of thing, which I guess to a degree it kind of is. But when it came up that early, I was like, this is too early for the big reveal to have happened, I feel like. And so I was like, something's gonna be up. Like they're not gonna believe me, something's gonna happen, right? It was also when I really began to like, because I had like some suspicions of like Jim Broadbent's character.
Okay.
That really kind of began when he gave him the tickets to play. I was like, well, he's not on necessarily the up and up at the very least. And this is when I was like, yeah, I don't, smells fishy here. But it was a great smarmy, like smug Timothy Dalton scene. Mm-hmm. I loved that entire exchange. But yeah, like I was like, this doesn't feel like it's gonna be it because it's too easy and it's too early.
Yeah, I've seen this movie so many times that it's hard for me to like view things removed from the knowledge I already have.
Sure.
But for me, watching this, I'm like, it felt brilliant to me because I'm seeing all these details and I'm like, this all makes sense. The plot that he's uncovering makes sense. The thing that's being pitched makes sense. You definitely are being led by Simon Skinner, Timothy Dalton's character, to believe he's the villain, but just enough. Like, the way he's so blatantly the villain makes me think, oh, maybe he's a red herring, but it also makes me think, oh, if he was a red herring, he wouldn't be this obvious, so maybe I'm supposed to think he's a red herring and he's actually the villain. Which, like you were saying, is kind of what happens.
Yeah.
But it's great. Point is, finds out all these details from the shop owner, and then she's immediately stabbed the second he turns his back outside. He chases after the murderer in the black cloak, can't catch them, and then he's super depressed. And he calls in the police force, and he's like, she was murdered, and they're like, are you saying she didn't just trip on her shears? And he's like, no, why would you think that?
It's he just explodes in an amazing way.
He's just like so fed up with everything, and it's great because I feel like as the audience you feel the exact same way he does, because you're watching and you're going, are you all just dense? Which is entirely what they all are for the most part. So, God, there's so many details in this. So after that, he confronts Skinner and he's like, hey, you did this. I'm bringing in the whole police force. You're the criminal. And Skinner's like, no, I'm not. Like, this whole plot, you think that happened. Because what he tells Skinner is, I think that you were afraid of competition moving into this area, and your cousin, the flower shop owner, was going to essentially betray you. So you killed everyone who could cause this to happen so that you'll inherit the place. And instead of losing money from competition moving into the city, you'll gain money from having this like super valuable plot of land. And he's like, nah, man. And to prove that he wasn't the murderer, Angel reveals his legs, which he assumes will have a cut because the guy he was chasing jumped through glass, and there's no cut. And he's like, crap. And then Angel gets depressed. And then he's like, wait, there could be more people involved, which it's weird to me that didn't occur to him earlier.
Yeah. I think the scene, like for me, like at least like go back to half a second, like the scene in the flower shop is great too, because it is like the pivot in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And just the apps, like again, like the absolute incredulous nature of Angel back in the police station, of just being like, what the fuck is wrong with all, like just like him freaking out, right? And then them still finding time in the back to put like change in the swear jar for every swear. And then be like, thank you, is like such a funny, again, like it goes back to the element of just like this feeling like an actual like ridiculous, absurd, but like real lived in world was like, yeah, they're going to keep doing the dumb joke bit thing. I really, really love. Like that scene's so great.
So Angel is now very depressed. He goes back to his hotel where Michael, the large yarp man,
beats the shit out of him.
Beats the crap out of him. Angel survives by the skin of his teeth, finds a walkie-talkie on Michael, and the voice of Simon Skinner coming through it reveals that Michael is supposed to go meet at the castle once Angel's dead. So Angel goes to find Skinner at this castle. Before he can, Danny shows up. He tells Danny, call your dad, tell him what's happening, keep an eye on Michael, I'm going to go settle this. And he heads off to confront, I don't know what he thinks he'll find. He knows he'll find Simon Skinner, for sure. He goes off to confront Skinner and discovers what is essentially a cult.
A hella creepy cult.
A creepy, creepy cult. The NWA is revealed to not just be the Neighborhood Watch Alliance, but be an entire team all dressed in black that was murdering these people and has been murdering people under the guise of accidents for a long time, not to make money, not for some large plan of world domination, but simply to win the best village award and to kill anyone who stops that from happening.
The greater good, man.
The greater good. Again, Logan, as someone who had not seen this movie, what did you think when you got to this point?
It was a weird it was a weird direction. Yeah, like I didn't expect a cult necessarily at the center of this. I think the entire scene of all of them like chanting around the thing before they actually started speaking was like, again, weird and creepy. Punctuated by again a callback to, there's so many callbacks to early bits in the movie, but like the callback to the woman being like, and Rhonda had her 2 babies and they were all been invited to the christening. Anyway, to you, Herb, kind of thing. It's like that was so, like it was funny the first time, and it's even funnier now when they're all like dressed out in a cult talking about murdering people, and it's like boom, and now we're gonna give some brief, updates on the christening and dive back into this.
It's such a great balance of like creepy, but also the feel of like a small town village and just funny.
I do think that the like him falling into the crypt and like has legitimately like a half dozen payoffs from earlier in the movie. Like so many things that happened in the movie all paid off there, and it's such a great thing. Just like boom, 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 boom. There are the updates on all of these characters and why you haven't seen them again. And it's so funny and it's so dark and it's so well done. Like it's such a great way to, again, just like the introduction. It's another thing basically to be like, you're just gonna get basically updates on all these people with no dialogue, just camera shots of them for like half a second. And it's going to tell you so much about the story and the world and just how serious the shit is down here.
And as we touched on, we find out that Frank, the chief inspector, is in on this. He's working with the NWA and has been ever since his wife, Danny's mother, died. We also then find out that, quote unquote, Danny's working with them, which breaks Sergeant Angel's heart. Angel goes running through the crypts, as you said. Danny catches him, stabs him, throws him in the back of his car, and goes to dispose of the body, where we find out that, again, paying off something we saw earlier in the movie, Danny faked his stabbing using a ketchup packet and is letting Nick Angel off free. And Angel does that for a second. He's like, I'm leaving. I don't know what I can do. I'm getting out of here. Danny says something that I did not realize was a reference until this watch. Not because I don't know the movie it's referencing, just because it didn't click with me. When he's telling Nicholas Angel to leave, he's like, forget it, Nicholas, it's Sanford. And I love that. I love the Chinatown reference. But unlike Chinatown, where our protagonist kind of just gives up, Angel ain't having none of that. He goes to a store and he is invigorated by the spirit of action movies that Danny has introduced him to. And he returns to the town armed and ready for a fight. First, he takes out a farmer and a farmer's mom.
Boom. Great shot.
Which is just also a callback. Everything's a callback. It's amazing. He goes and gets the entire armory of weapons. He arms himself in another move that I think is a very, very good use of filmography and cinematography and editing by Edgar Wright. You have that shot of the keypad to unlock the armory. And we've seen that keypad in the beginning of the movie when he's being shown around. We see that keypad midway through when the armory is being stocked. So it's just this great way of, instead of having to show the entire space of the police station and like him walking up and going to the armory, you just show that little tiny shot of the keypad. You know exactly where you are immediately, which you see throughout the movie, just mimicking shots from earlier to tell you where you are without having to actually show you the entirety of where you are. So he gets on a horse. He goes into town. A whole gunfight ensues. He shoots a lot of people. Danny is sitting in a police car for a lot of this gunfight, but finally opens the door to stop a woman on a bike from shooting Sergeant Angel. She goes flying. Angel throws Danny one of the guns, and now Danny's in on the fight too. We see the Reverend come out and try to tell everyone to be peaceful, and then whip out guns from his sleeves, which is amazing. They deal with him. From there, we go to the pub, where there's more shootouts. The police with Frank Butterman, the chief, arrive, and Nick or Sergeant Angel and Danny have to turn them. They all turn against Frank. Frank runs off. And then we get to the supermarket, which is it's an image that's just stuck in my head. Like I kind of forgot the pub action scene happened, but that supermarket action scene is very good.
The shootout in the town square is going to be my pick for my favorite scene in the movie. I think it is just like brilliantly shot and directed action sequence.
It's
that
very
builds
fun.
and builds and builds so much. Yeah, so many payoffs, so many dumb bits, like the recurring gags, and also just like it's really great action scenes. It's really great.
What's also great is it's not just cannon fodder enemies.
Yeah.
It's all people you know. And not only does that make you care about them or resent them in a much more personal way, but you also there's also these little jokes that can be made because you understand who these characters are and how they interact as people. So like the Reverend walking out and whipping out guns from his sleeves would be funny regardless. But the fact that you already know him and know the way he communicates and talks and believes makes it so much better.
Also, is a great callback to one of my favorite scenes again with the old hag bit. It's so good.
Also great. Also just the way that it's very easy for a gunfight to be, oh, shoot this person, shoot this person, shoot this person, like with some fun little dives and hiding and stuff. But instead of doing that, you have fun ways of taking someone out, such as, shooting, I believe, a flower pot or some kind of hanging thing above someone's head so it knocks them out. In the pub, you have him shoot a bear trap that clamps down on the guy's head, which is alarming. And anyway, we're at the supermarket. From the supermarket, they take out the two butchers. They take out Michael, the big yarp man. They get to Skinner, but he is on the run. He hops in a car with Frank. Frank and him take off. They're driving down the road. Angel and Danny are after them. They're firing guns back and forth. What's going to happen? Suddenly, Swan. Skinner and Frank weave off the road, go flying into the field, crash next to a miniature model of the entire village, which is amazing. And from here, we have the final action scene where Angel and Skinner have a fist fight in the mini town. And the thing I was referencing, the thing that I consider the grossest part of this movie, Skinner has his jaw impaled
fair enough.
by the steeple of the miniature church.
It's a great... Also, again, like, it was that moment I realized that, like, none of the characters had died yet. Like, I just been like, they're all dead. And then at that point, I was like, oh, fuck, yeah, they're not killing any of these characters. Because, again, like, you're being a cop. You're not trying to kill these people kind of thing. And I was like, that's such a well-done image, yeah.
It's a really great little detail, too, because this movie leans so heavily into being an action movie at this point, but it never goes full bore. I feel like it's a lot more British in that way. Because, like, Britain does have a lot less of a tolerance for guns than America does. And I really appreciate that because I don't like guns. So I enjoy that it's a lot less of a mess in terms of like death and just like not really caring about human life than some of the more American action movies are.
Action movies?
But yeah. But anyway, that basically wraps it up. Frank tries to get away, but the Swan in the car, I forgot to mention, they stop to save the Swan, which is great.
Yes.
Frank tries to drive off with their car, but the Swan's in the car, attacks Frank, he crashes. And that wraps up most of our story. They go to do a lot of paperwork, which I love. And then, as you mentioned, the NWA liaison shows up with a gun. Angel kicks him into the armory. It triggers the mortar that we thought was turned off. The sea mine that we thought was turned off. The sea mine explodes. For a second, we think Danny's dead. We cut to a year later. Angel goes to the gravestone of a mysterious butterman, but we don't know who. And then Danny walks into frame. We find out that it's Danny's mom, Irene. And our movie ends with them off for their next calm little village adventure as police officers. Police officers. Servicemen. Service officers. Servicers. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the terms that they used.
Police officers, yeah.
Yeah. I love this movie so much, Logan. That was a lot of like facts and details. I was hoping I could be a lot faster going through these little, like story beats, but there's just, because it's a mystery.
You love this movie. Like
I do love this movie, but also just because
it's totally fair. Like,
because it's a movie, because it's a mystery, there's just like so many little details that you need to follow. Because you need to follow the mystery. You need to follow what establishes the town. You need to follow the relationship between Danny and Angel.
I think Hot Fuzz is great. Like, I think it is a just genuinely, like, especially as somebody who's been waiting essentially a decade to watch the movie at this point now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, yeah, it is the layers. It is the complexities of it. It is how it all kind of builds on top of each other again and again and again. Like, it is such a great, funny, goofy, well done mystery. Like, that's my review. Like, it's a great movie. Edgar Wright is great at what he does.
It's great at being funny. It's great at being a mystery. It's great at action when it is
an action movie. Yeah.
It's also a great just story about the relationship between two coworkers, and the fact that it juggles all of those things and never drops them is amazing.
Yes, 100%.
I will say from my research, a lot of effort also went into making this as like accurate to the police force as it could be. They interviewed 50 police officers to write this script, which is a lot. But you can definitely feel that just in everything about it feels authentic. Even when they do go like action heavy and kind of absurd, they still ground it in, you have to do all this paperwork and you can't kill anyone.
Yeah, and I think, again, it is a realistic, it has, because it might sound like police movie and story, where it is a thing like, you're not trying to kill people, you're trying to stop them, trying to like arrest and bring them to justice, but like you don't want to kill them, right? Like there's a line that Angel says to the priest, where he's like, I might not be a religious man, but like I know the difference between like right and wrong, right? Like I know that, and like I know the difference between like these kind of things, and like the fact that like Angel is somebody who like for most movie, I guess, like doesn't like guns. Like he's very pointed, says like I don't like guns, I never want to shoot one again if I don't have to. Like he doesn't want to be that kind of hero.
Yeah,
he does it because like he's been forced in a situation, and even though he's forced in a situation, he's still gonna do it in his own way, in his own terms, and not be some guy who's out here like blowing off heads and like barrel like in guys in the shot, like the chest of shotgun shells. Like he's like not that kind of thing. It's like, I just need you to stop so I can bring you to justice. I can bring some sort of like peace and stability into the town.
There's a really great turning point when they do watch those two action movies after their night of bonding. Because Edgar Wright in an interview even said that scene was designed so that you could kind of view this movie as Angel watches these films and goes to sleep, and everything after that is kind of this like heightened dream version. Not to say that like it was all a dream, just to say that it's almost like this is using Edgar Wright's verbology again. It's like Neo having information uploaded to his brain. Angel goes to sleep watching these movies, and the action hero is uploaded to his brain. Which is super cool. This is also one of the few cop movies that the United Kingdom has. They don't really do these. That was a part of the inspiration for Edgar Wright, was him just being like, we like every other culture seems to have cop movies and we don't. So let's make one. Logan,
tell me,
what is your ranking of Edgar Wright movies?
Yeah, so I wrote it down. My list of Edgar Wright movies, I'll go bottom to top.
Okay, I love it.
With the immediate stipulation, and it's an important one, that I've not seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Okay. Or The World's End.
I know, yes. But that one, I'm just excited to see.
It's good. I enjoy it a lot.
But Scott Pilgrim versus the World is one like where it's like I know that I'll love that movie, or at least I've been told, and I think I would love it. So yeah. Otherwise, I have. And the bottom, so like really, really fuck everything else. I'm doing a top 4 because like who cares? I'm not here to be like a downer. Top 4.
Do what you gotta do.
Also, it's important to note that I'm counting Ant-Man as an Edgar Wright movie. It's like a weird one, I know, but like I'm counting it as an Edgar Wright movie.
I assumed you were when you said top 4, but yeah, that's a choice. Okay, go for it.
I think it's fair to me. So my top 4 is gonna be divisive to you. I think right off the bat and immediately. Hot Fuzz is number 4.
Oh wow.
So I'm gonna say Hot Fuzz, Ant-Man, Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, I disagree with this heavily. Okay, I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to count Ant-Man just because I've seen every Edgar Wright movie, so I don't need to do that. I mean, if I count Ant-Man, it'll be number 6. So do I really need to?
You don't like Ant-Man?
I don't dislike Ant-Man. I enjoy it. I just think that Edgar Wright is a phenomenal filmmaker, and I think every movie he's made is more interesting than Ant-Man, partly because every movie he's made is actually made by him and not started by him and then taken over by the Marvel Cinematic Universe's very generic machine. I love Paul Rudd. I love the character of Ant-Man.
Love Paul Rudd.
I think the first Ant-Man is definitely in my top half of the MCU, but
yes, for sure.
I have a love-hate relationship with the MCU, so.
Sure, yeah. And we both do.
We do, yeah. That's a conversation we'll get to eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, number 5. This is gonna be controversial for you. Number 5, my least favorite Edgar Wright movie, Baby Driver.
That's fine.
Number 4, it's hard for me to rank Shaun of the Dead just because I haven't seen it in a long time. Okay, number 4 is The World's End. Number 3 is Shaun of the Dead. Those two might switch if I rewatch Shaun of the Dead. Number 2 is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and number 1 is Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz.
I love Hot Fuzz. I mean,
yeah.
But the thing with Edgar Wright is so many of his movies are so good that I think every ranking is valid, except Baby Driver being at the top. But
it's funny too, because like I almost switched to Baby Driver and Ant-Man. Like the thing for me is like I was on the record like Trevor Starkey and so many people love capital L love Baby Driver, and I really liked the first maybe like act and a half of Baby Driver, and then like a big important thing that movie happens, and from that point onwards I like the movie considerably less.
My thing with Baby Driver is...
Give me your thing about Baby Driver.
I think from a technical standpoint, Baby Driver is a masterpiece of filmmaking. It is essentially a musical made out of action, and I am obsessed with what Edgar Wright is able to do as a filmmaker. However, I don't think its story is very good for 2 reasons. One is I think
how spoiler are you getting? I get on Baby Driver, but
I'm not going to get too spoilery. I think that the love interest is a manic pixie dream girl. I think she's horribly undeveloped. And I think I would be more forgiving of the movie for that if the entire storyline didn't hinge on her motivating Baby to do things. Like, not like her telling him to do things, but just like she is the catalyst for him to do things.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't buy her as a character. I don't buy their relationship. I don't buy any of it. So everything that comes because of that, I'm not invested in or accept. So I think the movie has a lot going for it. I think that's a major flaw, and it horribly undermines the movie for me.
I wish you were there when I watched the movie, because I watched a movie with Trevor in Phoenix when I visited him there. And again, like when a big important moment happens in the movie and the movie kind of shifts like the kind of first and second half of what it is, I literally spend 98% of the movie being like, I think this is all a dream. And then he's going to wake up some more time. And he doesn't. It's like, oh, then it's just bad. Like, I don't like any of like what happens in the last act. Like, it's just like, this seems like we're in a weird dream sequence and it just lasts for an hour and a half. But it's like, this is so different tonally and also just like logically than what the first half was. It's like, I just don't like that. But like, it's also thing like, man, when Baby Driver works, I really do like, it is a musical put into action. That's really cool.
And like, I walked away from that movie very much enjoying it. I was also biased though, because I love Edgar Wright. B, because it's a very fun movie that does really cool things that you don't see that often. C, because I
absolutely
saw it at the premiere. So that skews your view of it. But yeah, it's sad to me that the Edgar Wright movie premiere I went to was my least favorite Edgar Wright movie. But whatever, it's fine. I got to see Matt Smith walk past me. You live.
I think that for me, what I would describe, both talking to you and also thinking about it, is like, I feel like Shaun of the Dead is my Hot Fuzz.
I get that. I understand.
Like and also it helps affect like Shaun of the Dead came out in 2004. It's a 15-year-old movie, and so it's like me and my friend group grew up watching and rewatching and rewatching and rewatching and rewatching like all the time. Shaun of the Dead. Like I can like just quote verbatim entire like scenes of that movie. Like it is like Shaun of the Dead is like straight up just like easily I would say my top 10 favorite comedies of all time. Like I love Shaun of the Dead. Like I think it's so clever and so smart, and it's also the thing of it's more of like it is so fucking funny in a way that like Hot Fuzz I think is still very funny, but is also like a very serious like mystery at times, like all these kind of other things. But I feel like Shaun of the Dead is just a more traditional kind of like subversion and kind of like playing up the like zombie storyline aspect of it more. With still like delivers great dramatic lines, but like
I think that's why I like Hot Fuzz more, because I have my issues with it. We'll get to those. This is a very long podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will wrap up soon.
No, you're fine.
Cool. So I have my issues with it, but I think my thing with comedy is not that I don't like straight comedies, but I definitely think I lean towards comedies that interweave with other things. So like Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies, which is a comedy, but also a straight up fantasy adventure. This is a comedy, but also a mystery thriller action movie. And those work really well for me.
What would you change about this movie? That's what I want to know.
Okay, we will get to that in a moment. But I want to ask you, what are your 3 favorite scenes from this film?
Yes. So I've got, again, I mentioned the shootout in the town square, because I think that scene is just like almost like a perfect action sequence. Like, it is so well done. Getting all the guns, we talked about it a little bit too. I think it's just like straight up pure like comedic is so funny. And the guy that getting the guns from is like such a great, just like inaudible, like goofy, weird, like plays into like what the town is so well. And then my third pick is, to be fair, it's kind of a cop out. It's kind of similar to the shootout in the town square. It's a shootout in the mall, because I think it's so good. And I think like the kind of split between Angel doing like his kind of one-on-one fight, but it's fighting the guys, just like throwing meat cleavers at people. Like, it's just really fun. It's well done. It has like maybe my favorite like back and forth exchange between Angel and Nick Frost's character, where just like he basically like slides into place up against
oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and then goes basically explains what happened. Oh, like I knocked him out, he's in the freezer, he's done there, and he just goes, "Did you say anything cool?" "No." "Shame." And like that's it, like that's all it is. It's like so funny. And then he goes like, "Well, like earlier when I hit him in the pot, like I had a line." It goes like, "Nice." And they'll just keep going. It's like such a great like self-aware moment of being like, all right, we're in an action movie right now. Like, did you have a great like action movie like sign-off line kind of thing? And like I think also highlights the kind of where the ship has like taken at this point, like kind of the playful nature of who they are. And like it's a meta joke, it's a funny joke, it's really like it's just like it's so good. And I just laughed so much at that joke when it happened. It's like that whole scene I think is just great.
For as good as this movie's mysteries and comedy is, I think that what really elevates it above everything else is how good that relationship and that dynamic between Angel and Butterman is.
I could very easily put that, like again, their bonding scene would very easily be my top 3 as well.
Speaking of their bonding scene, the first of my 3 favorite scenes is their bonding scene.
Hell yeah.
Yep. I also love, we touched on it a lot, it's not really a scene, it's a series of shots, but Angel traveling on the train to Stanford is amazing. And finally, the It's a Swan scene. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I just love that it could so easily be a throwaway gag, but they make it matter.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my favorite 3.
I love those a lot. Those are very good ones.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah.
This brings us to, what is your favorite character that isn't the protagonist? I'm gonna say it can't be Danny either, because we just went over how
good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
This is really tough, and I actually like was thinking a lot about this. My like head is going in one direction, but like my heart, it just keeps going back to the fact that like I think Olivia Colman and like what her character is legitimately fucking hilarious, because she's so dumb. It's a one note joke again and again and again, but it works so well. Like it's just like her. Oh my god! Like, and it's that thing like she's not even a great character. It's just like her being stupid, but like she's so funny and that she's so effortless in it, and also knowing like how talented Olivia Colman is. Like she just like everyone's lines lands, like every one of those jokes lands, and it's like so, and like it's that thing of the first one is kind of like, oh, that was a weird, and then like that's literally all of her dialogue in the movie is just like her making like sex jokes, and it's really good. So I'm probably gonna go with Olivia Colman, also just because like I fucking love Olivia Colman. So
that's fair. My favorite character, it's a hard one because so many of the characters in this movie are so good. I'm gonna not say Simon Skinner, played by Timothy Dalton, just to keep it interesting, even though realistically, I want to go a little farther away from that. I love Wembley, the guy who they have to translate twice. I love him. He's so weird.
I also want to give a shout out to the 2 detectives who I almost chose, because I think they're like that's why I didn't pick them, because they're technically 2 characters, but like their dynamic is so good. Like they're a great comedic duo.
Mm-hmm. Finally, this brings us to a couple games. We got a little I don't know what to say at this point. I was trying to be funny.
Game.
I'm so tired. Anyway, trivia.
Yes.
So the location that this movie is filmed in is also the hometown of a person who is significant to this movie. That could mean an actor, that could mean one of the writers, that could mean the director. Whose hometown do you think it is?
This is tough. I'm going to say, for no discernible reason, I'm just going to say Timothy Dalton, even though I know it's not accurate. But I want it to be true, so I'm going to say Timothy Dalton.
I absolutely made you overthink this because it's kind of obvious it's Edgar Wright's hometown.
That's what I was thinking, but like I wanted it to be Timothy Dalton. That's the thing, I wanted it to be that.
Because you sit there and you're like, well, realistically, Edgar Wright had the say in everything. So like, it feels like it makes the most sense, and it does make the most sense. It's Edgar Wright's hometown, which is super cool. I think that's cute.
Yeah.
Second piece of trivia.
Okay, I'll do better this time.
How many action movies do you think they watched in the process of making this film? Which, by the way, it took them 18 months, I believe. Yeah, it took 18 months to write the script. Not like the first draft, I believe, took 8 months, 6 to 8 months, if I remember correctly. It took 18 months to get it to the point where they shot it. And in the course of that, they watched how many action movies?
Oh, God. I'm going to go high.
Okay.
I want to say, for the clarification's sake, I want the answer to be 2, and I want the answer to be Bad Boys and Point Break. But I'm going to say they watched 31 action movies.
You're going really high with that.
Yeah, I went high. Is it 2? Is it closer to 2?
No, you didn't go anywhere near high enough.
Really? I didn't want to go crazy high. It was like
what do you consider crazy? It's 138.
That was pretty good.
You were so
not
close.
Bad,
yeah. They watched 138 action movies to make this. The amount of action movie references in this film is insane.
Demolition Man.
I was watching the last 30 minutes of it on Amazon on my phone because I was running errands and needed to finish. And when I paused it, Amazon's playing service has this cool thing where they're like, oh, here's all the actors in the scene you're watching right now. Here's a couple bits of trivia. And what I realized is Amazon tells you every action movie reference in the scene you're watching. So like I had it paused and like, oh, this is reference to this.
Yeah,
this is
I saw
reference
that
to
too.
this.
I noticed that too when I was watching it. Yeah,
which is super cool. That is our bit of trivia. In terms of reception, this movie came out in 2007, and I didn't put down the exact day it came out because it came out in the UK and in America, and we're in America, but UK came out first. You get it. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. It made $80.7 million in United States dollars off of a budget of $10 million, which is
totally respectable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's respectable. It's also double of both for comparison to Shaun of the Dead. So Shaun of the Dead was about $5 million and made about 40. This is 10 million, 80 million, which is very respectable. It's a very good mid-range film in terms of cost. We don't get a lot of those very often. I think Baby Driver is another very good example of a movie that's made for a decent sized budget, but it isn't a massive blockbuster in scale. And I love those movies. I miss them dearly. A couple other fun facts. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were often mistaken for real police officers during filming.
That checks out.
So people would come up and ask for them for directions. They also couldn't afford to close off any streets. So when the giant action scene in the town center was happening, what you don't see is right off camera, there's just old ladies and kids watching everything going down, which is adorable. I love that. Filmmaking is so chaotic.
England's the best. Yeah.
And yeah, that's all we got for little tidbits of information. Executive action. This is our game. That last episode I called You're an Exec, but now I'm officially dubbing Executive Action. This is the game where we decide one or two ways that we would change this movie if we were an exec. We're not saying that we know better than the people involved with making it. We are simply saying that we have personal preferences.
And we're better than them.
No, we are not. No, we're not doing that. We are Hollywood. Please hire me. I'm not claiming to know more than you. Edgar Wright, give me a job. I love you. Anyway.
Mine is easy.
Logan, how would you change this movie? One or two ways.
I'd really only change one thing, and it's the ending, which I don't like.
What defined the ending?
This is exactly it. In particular, like the movie should have ended with them all doing paperwork at the end. That should have been the final shot of the movie. I think with like when the other guy walks in with like fucking like barrel blaster gun, right, and like the whole thing with like the sea mine and that blown up and like Nick dying but not actually dying for no like that all I didn't need any of that. Like I would have cut all of that out and just had it end with him doing paperwork in the movie and like making dumb jokes and like Angel making like his own like sex joke to like Olivia Colman's character, kind of, like that would have been like the ending, like all of them just like together.
That's fair.
Yeah, like I feel like that was much more like stronger ending, and the actual like end like scene was just like this is weird because like what is the point of this like fake out death for like 34 seconds, and then it's like all right, not actually dead, and it's like I didn't need it.
I understand why they did it because I think that they were trying to end it on the note of Danny and Angel's relationship. I don't think I dislike that ending the way you do, but I definitely see how your ending also works very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the fake out is a little weird, but I think it's partially just a choice of, in my opinion, which is why I'm saying that like these aren't us saying we know how to end a movie better or change the movie to be better. It's just us saying, you know, we all have personal preferences. And I think Edgar Wright veered towards the personal preference of whether he executed it perfectly or not, of wanting it to be that relationship. Whereas I feel like you're kind of wanting it to end more on the note of what a police force actually is and kind of the parody that is going on within this movie, even though it's not really a parody film, which is a very valid place to end it. This has been my spiel. I'm sorry, I totally took over what you were saying.
No, what would you change? I'm curious.
I had two things. I might reevaluate that to be one thing. I'm going to say one thing. I think this movie is overall... Actually, no, it's two things. I think that sometimes this movie's editing is a bit too chaotic.
Okay.
Because it's so mystery heavy, there are moments where, like, when they're doing the paperwork for booking people, it's, like, super chaotic and it's, like, coming at you from different angles.
Okay, that's fair, yeah.
I don't think that's perfect. And I think that really expresses itself in some of the action scenes. I think that Edgar Wright is a brilliant action filmmaker, and I think that he's very good at giving you a sense of space. However, I think this is also the movie where he was really cutting his teeth on action. And I think you do see some of the learning curves that come with that. So there's a couple moments where the editing, it feels very like 2000s, you know, a lot of cutting to make the action seem chaotic. But at the end of the day, it doesn't quite work. And I think Edgar Wright learned that because I think in later movies, you see his action be a lot clearer and a lot more like you just see what's happening. You don't need to cut around things constantly. So that's one thing. But I think that's like, I don't think that's something that you as an executive could actually go in and say, like, change this, because I don't think it's a change factor.
Sure,
I think it's just a very talented filmmaker trying something new and learning how to handle it.
How movies were made then too, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. And then the second thing, which is my bigger gripe, is the whole bit when Danny's like, you think Danny might be working with his dad, and then he fakes Angel's death, and then Angel's like, your dad's the bad guy, and Danny's like, no, that's his club. That's so dumb. Like, it's not just that it's dumb. Because here's the thing, I don't dislike the idea of, oh, you think Danny's a bad guy, but the fact that Danny saw all of that, felt the need to stab Angel to fake his death, and still didn't realize that his dad was this big villain is weird to me. And I don't know why they didn't just have it be that Danny realized what was going on, told his dad he was on his side, and then faked Angel's death and was like, look, I know what my dad's doing is wrong, but there's nothing we can do about it. Just get out of here before you get hurt. I care about you too much. I think that would have worked better.
I think it's totally fair. I think it's a totally valid point.
This brings us to the wrap-up portion of our episode, our very long episode. Any closing thoughts about the movie, Logan?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, even though I have it at number 4 out of my Wright movies, it's still, I think, a testament to the quality and the craftsmanship of what Edgar Wright does. Because I think Hot Fuzz is great. Like, I think it is a very good movie. I think it is very, very funny. I think it's a legitimately great mystery. I think it has legitimately like brilliantly crafted action sequences because Edgar Wright is great at that. Simon Pegg, basically like always, I love and think is great. Nick Frost, again, like always, I think is great and I love. The cast of characters is legitimately too good. Like it's like way better than it should be, but it's so great. It's so wonderful. All the side characters, like both in terms of the police department and in terms of like the actual NWA group itself, somehow all get like a moment to shine and have like a great line or a great moment. I think it is arguably the most ambitious in terms of like cast of any of Edgar Wright movies because it's such a big cast. You have to know everybody, and you do know everybody. You do learn who each kind of distinct personalities are. Like I think it is great. I could also see it being a movie that like with more time, because we're recording this again like 2 hours after I got to watching it, I might like even more as I think about it more and like think about what we've talked about.
Right.
But no, like Hot Fuzz is great. I definitely understand and respect why it would be one of your favorite movies of all time because it's brilliant.
I'm so glad you watched it.
Yeah, I'm very happy I watched it.
Before we go, Logan, very quickly, because we did run very long with this episode, what is one cool thing you have done or seen this week?
Yeah, I meant to see Parasite this weekend. I did not.
So good. It's so good, Logan.
I will fucking love it. That's the thing. Either Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving, I'm going to see Parasite. There are literally like no seats bought at Alamo Draft House. So like I'll probably be like the only guy in the theater, but I'm so excited to see that. On Sunday, I'm gonna see. So I'm like answering your question by like future proof for myself, where it's like on Sunday, I'm gonna see Tom Hanks' Mr. Rogers movie. I am so excited to like cry.
I'm excited to see that too.
I'm so ready for it. I am absolutely gonna love it. And then I've been watching a lot of Parks and Rec for like the first time all the way through in like one actual fluid motion. And you know what? That show, real good. It's very funny. Yeah, what about you, Ben?
I saw a little movie over this weekend. It's animated. It has to do with winter and snow.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Just let it go already.
It's Klaus, Netflix's animated Christmas movie.
I'm shaking you can't see me, but I'm shaking my head at you.
Thank you. I appreciate the feeling. But no, I'm completely serious.
I'll add it to the list. I'll check it out, I'm sure.
Anyone listening to this, if I can urge you of anything ever, please go watch Klaus. It is a 2D animated movie, which is amazing.
We should have a Christmas movie. We should have, if we'd planned it better, we should.
Yeah, it's a 2D animated movie, which is amazing because I miss 2D animation. It is the best Christmas movie I have seen in a long time. It's probably one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. It's probably one of my favorite American animated movies of all time now. I cried 5 times. It's wonderful. It's currently my 3rd favorite movie of the year, behind Parasite and The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Yeah, it's Logan. I don't want to overhype it for you. I don't want you to go in like expecting too much because I went in expecting nothing, so that probably helped. But it is genuinely phenomenal. I'm blown away. Again, I cried 5 times.
Jesus. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'll definitely recommend this.
Yeah, that movie broke me and broke Ava. So this has been the pilot month of That Wannabe Film Class. Thank you so much to anyone who has tuned in to this nearly 2-hour-long episode. Before we go, our next month's theme is going to be 2010 movies. Bet you couldn't have guessed that one.
Very excited about it, though.
We're kicking it off with our own villain lover Chloe's movie, Inception, which I'm very excited about. Also,
I'm
totally
excited to talk about Inception.
I'm very excited to talk about Inception. I also thought Inception came out in the late 2000s, so I was debating it for my 2000 movie pick, and then Chloe put it on her 2010 list, and I was like, no, Chloe, you're wrong. And she's like, excuse me? And this is where I learned that I'm wrong, and I should stop acting like I know things.
Get ready for the first ever 2-hour-long episode of That Wannabe Film Class. That movie, that movie's gonna be one where we dissect the shit out of that movie. Like Inception is a match. It's so fucking good.
Speaking of 2-hour-long episodes of That Wannabe Film Class, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for joining in on our pilot month. We would love to hear from you about what you think works and what you don't think works with the podcast so we can adjust things. If you think this 2-hour length is too long, I'd love to know. Personally, I think an hour to an hour and 30 is a good range for our episodes. But if you're listening to this and you're like, nah, man, 2 hours is fine, then cool. Let us know that. If you think that I give too many details when doing my recaps, that's good to know. I can try and adjust, or I can just shovel that job off to someone else. I would love to do that. I have too many things to do on this podcast. Really, any advice, any ideas, things you love, things you don't love, we would love to get your feedback. Logan, where can people find you?
You can find me at LeftyLogie on Twitter and everywhere else around the world. I'm usually probably tweeting about dominoes or other goofy, silly nonsense. You can also go check me out on That Nerdy Site, where I am one of the hosts of That Video Game List Show. You can go check out the latest episode of that. It is very good. That show is something I'm particularly proud of. You can go check out That Nerdy Site show. When this episode goes live on Thanksgiving, the newest episode of that show will have been me and Frank having a fireside chat next to a literal fireside in Frank's apartment. It was very fun, a lot of fun. We debated holidays and what are the best and worst.
Christmas.
Shout out to Arbor Day being trash. And yeah, it's all the good stuff. You can also go check out the kind of like welcome here, whatever piece that I wrote, Sic Parvis Magna.
We plugged it on our last podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. People said nice things about it, which I appreciated. So yeah, go check all of that out.
Adorable. I can be found on Twitter at Mr_BentoBox. I can be found anywhere else at Mr. BentoBox. That includes Instagram and Letterboxd. Please follow me on Letterboxd. I'm a giant film nerd, and that is, I love watching movies and writing little dumb reviews on it. You can also find me on That Nerdy Site, where I also wrote an article, and I will be writing more articles going forward. You can also support That Nerdy Site on Patreon by searching That Nerdy Site. We have a bunch of fun little tiers. We have a vlog that we give out to some of our Patrons right now.
Oh yeah, we hit our second tier.
We did hit our second tier.
Goal.
We are now making enough money to support a Disney Plus podcast that will be releasing.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We're still working out when that will come out. I think we're still working out the consistency with which it will come out. But we'll be talking about Disney Plus shows, I think with a rotating cast, because Lord knows we're all too busy to have a second full podcast on our docket, or in your case, a fourth. You do so much, Logan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try.
Anyway, if you like this podcast, subscribe, review us on iTunes. Also, tweet at us with hashtag #WannabeFilmClass or hashtag #ThatWannabeFilmClass with any tips or advice or ideas, anything to help us make your podcast experience with us better. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.